We have a couple of videos for you this week. The first one for Monday and Tuesday is on finding the length of an arc or finding the distance around an object. So the first questions that we're doing are questions where we just find the arc. That means just this outside part of the circle. So it's kind of like a part of the circumference. So you see here, what we would do is we would do what we would normally do to get the circumference of a circle, which is we just do 2 times pi times radius. In this case, they give us the diameter, so the radius is 10. So that's why I put in 2 times pi times 10 and got 62.8. But since this is a semicircle, I took that amount and I divided it by 2 to give us the arc length of 31.4. So that means this arc is 31.4 inches. Now here we have not a semicircle, but we have a quadrant. And as you can see up here, a quadrant is just a fourth of a circle. So I did the exact same thing I did with the semicircle. The first thing I did is I found the circumference of the whole circle. So imagining this whole circle was complete, I did 2 times pi times the radius. Well, again, since this would be the radius of an entire circle, like if I wanted to kind of like have an imaginary rest of the circle here, 28 would be the radius of that circle. So I did 2 times pi times 28, so I got the circumference of what the whole circle would be, and then I divided that by 4 because I only had a quadrant, so then I got my length of the arc, which is 43.96. So then what we have here is we have a couple of these that you could try on your own. So again, for these we are just finding the length of the arc. So we have the total circumference, so we're going to again use the formula. So 2 times pi times r, and then if you look at this semicircle here, we have a diameter of 9.8. So we're going to put radius into the formula, so we need to divide 9.8 by 2, so that would tell us that the radius is 4.9. So 2 times pi times 4.9. Okay, so you're going to multiply that out, which would give you 30.772 feet. And then what we're going to do is, since we only have a semicircle, I'm going to take that and I'm going to divide it by 2, because there's only half of a circle, and then that would give me 15 and 386 thousandths feet. So that is the length of just the highlighted arc. Okay, the same thing here. We have a quadrant, and then the quadrant, again, if we wanted to kind of imagine the rest of the circle, if we wanted to continue it, that 10, which would also be the value here and here, is just the radius of the circle. So again, I'm going to get the total radius of what the whole circle would be, which is 2 times pi times 10, okay? Because 10 is the radius, so 62.8 as our total circumference, and since this is only a fourth of a circle, since a quadrant's only a fourth of a circle, I'm going to take that and I'm going to divide it by 4, and that's going to give me 15.7 centimeters as just this arc. Okay, and then the second type of question that we have is questions where it's not asking us just for the arc, it's asking us for the distance around an entire object. So Ms. Sadowski actually helped us with this one time, where she kind of explained it like, imagine you started at this point here and you were going to walk a path that walked all those outside lines to get back to where you started, so it'd be the total distance. So you see here, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're still going to need to find that green highlighted part, which is the arc, which is what we just did before. We found the total circumference of what that circle would be, and then we just divided it by 2. So this part here is 15.7, okay? But then what we need to do is we need to add 15.7 to the diameter of 10 that's here to give us the total distance around the semicircle, which is 25.7. Same thing here, but this time we have a quadrant. So again, we found the total circumference of what the circle would be, which would be 21.98, and then we divided it by 4. So this arc, just this arc, is 5 and 495 thousandths inches. So then what we needed to do is we needed to add it to the 2 yellow lines, because we need to add these parts on the outside. So the arc plus this radius gives us the total distance around the shape. So let's try a couple of these on our own, well, actually together. So we're going to find the distance around these two here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find just the semicircle arc. So I'm going to do 2 times pi times, in this case they give us just the radius, which is 25. So I'm going to do 25 times 2 times pi, which would give you 157 is the total distance around the circle. But since I only have a semicircle, I'm going to divide that by 2, and that gives me 78.5. So this piece right here is 78.5, and then I need to add the distance of yellow here, because that's also part of the outside of the shape. So I'm going to add the 50 to that, and that's going to give me a total of 128.5 meters, and that's the distance around. Alright, and the second one here, this time we have a quadrant. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the arc of the quadrant. And so they have the radius right here, and again, if you need to imagine that this circle was completed, this would just be a radius right here. So 2 times pi times 10.5, alright? So we're going to multiply 2 times pi times 10.5, which would give us 65 and 94 hundredths. And then since we have a quadrant, we're going to divide that by 4, and that's going to give us 16 and 485 thousandths. So this part right here is 16 and 485 thousandths. So then what I need to do is I need to add that green arc to the other 2 outside amounts here that I would have to add together to get the total distance around, which is 10.5 and another 10.5. So when I add that together, it gives me 37 and 485 thousandths meters. Alright guys, excuse me, centimeters. So if you have any questions of this, feel free to give me a message on Canvas, but otherwise good luck with these, and you'll see the quiz for the Monday, Tuesday lesson, and also these completed notes are up there as a PDF. Alright, thanks guys.